All right. So, as some of you may know, I've been working on a Chrome and Safari extension to add functionality and features that I've always wanted Fusion to have that it doesn't have. So, I figured I'd just build it myself because why not? Here we are. So, one thing to note if you've seen the previous demo, if you've seen the previous threads, it used to only work on Apex and local, but now it works on Apex Fusion as well. So, yay, the whole thing works there. So, what is the whole thing? All right, let's go through it. If you haven't seen any of this, stay tuned. I'm going to speed run through everything. Feature number one, you can have multiple dashboards in Fusion now. So, if you look at this guy over here, you got a little drop down list and you can see all the dashboards I've created. So now you can get a little bit more organized than you were able to with just one giant dashboard. You click on new dashboard, you give it a name, blah, 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 blah. You pick an icon, click this one, whatever. You can pick it, create a new dashboard. You can search for the icons. You search for the sun, click it, whatever. I'm not going to save it because I don't want more dashboards, but you can do that. You can create multiple dashboards now, which is pretty sick. And then you can also manage your dashboards, which is obvious. You can rearrange them. So let's just say I want alarms to be at the top, whatever. You can drop them, drag them, drop them, whatever. Delete them. Another couple things here is you can back up the whole customization. So each of these dashboards you don't want to rebuild again, just in case something happens and you want to restore what you previously had because you made a bunch of changes that you hated. You can restore them. You can import them after you get a backup, you can import it again, which is kind of nice. So that is the overview here of the default dashboard versus the custom dashboards, which is sick. Default dashboard is forever named default dashboard, but the rest of them you can rename and pick icons, go nuts. This is the next new obvious feature. We have this whole explore references area where you can drag this up. Here, the point is to see what code is referencing any of these things. So if you want to see all the code that's referencing feed A, you click on this and you can check it out. So if you click on skimmer pump, you'll see, hey, I've got some profile going for feed A and 35, but this tells me, hey, feed A is referenced here, also here, also here, also here, also here, whatever, blah, 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 which is pretty cool. The other thing you can do, check it out, is if you go to, this one's a decent one. If you go to any of these guys, so let's say my mix new salt water. So this is where I use auto water change enabled. One of the 5 times I use it, which is cool. Click on it, you can see all the code. But if you click on the name, you actually open the whole thing in a tab, and this is where we see the next feature. This feature actually is kind of why I started building this whole thing, is to have some sort of debugger for the code blocks here. If you want to know what this debugger does, you click that light bulb and you'll get an explanation here. So what this means, kind of in summary, is the gutter, which is the numbered areas here, will tell you red or green if this thing that I'm highlighting, so in this case, new saltwater high, is closed or not. It's not closed, so this is red. So this tells you if the condition being evaluated is true or false. In this case, the low sensor is closed, aka it's covered with water, so it's green. You can hover over it and see a little bit of information. Condition, new saltwater, low, closed. What type of input is it? It's a digital. What's the DID? I should remove that. That's the device ID, I think is what it stands for. The current value is closed, and the state is true on that, which is cool. But the highlighted line means this line 1. That because the Apex operates on last true statement. So the last true statement here is indeed that this thing is open, which sets the whole thing off. So that's red. So the outlet is red. The condition is true. So that's kind of where that's color coded. Long story short, just look for the colored line, and this will give you a little explanation of what's going on. And also, if you click on this Code Explorer, so this gives you a little tiny version of the same thing from the previous page, where we can say, hey, who else is using this mixed new salt water in its code? This guy is blah, 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 blah. So that's all good. That's all gravy. That's cool. Check that out. So let's go ahead and look at a couple new features. If we go to my Debug Me dashboard, this isn't special. I just created one called Debug Me. It's just a random name. Let's go ahead add some widgets. One thing that's cool is you can now filter widgets. So if you want to put my skimmer here, I'll put this here, sure. Put that there, sure. You can search by name, but you can also kind of go through these categories I've made. So here you can kind of say, hey, where's my pumps? So it's like, all right, cool. Here's the wave related things, etc. Trident related things. Cool. Let's pull this guy in there. And we want to look at virtual outlets. Uncategorized is going to be a bunch of the Apex stuff that I didn't categorize, etc. But that's pretty cool. But the one thing that you may have noticed if you're looking closely, let me get these out of the way so that this is easier to spot, is you go to custom. Now we have new widgets. So the first one to look at is divider. So we can go through here, you drag a divider in, it says column one. You can, type anything you want in there, add an emoji, let's add a little fish guy, hit enter, it's saved. And then just to continue with the demo, let's drag a custom wet dry. So wet dry is the same as a normal widget for your optical sensors, except instead of saying open close, it says wet and dry. So here we could say, hey, which one? So we have the calcium dosing jar with a optical in it. So let's say, cool, well, this wet dry is going to be pinned to that guy. So now we know it's wet. We have calcium. Let's go over here. What should be dry right now? So let's see. New saltwater high should be. What should I do? Whatever. So this will kind of, you could pick mixedness. That's not a good one. So, that's an alarm. That's why it's not working. So, okay, wet, dry. Sorry about that. New saltwater high. So this one should be dry because it's not all the way at the top. So you got a little skull guy, you're dry. So as I goofed earlier, let's say we have that. Now let's try another divider. Here is alarms here. And let's get alarm little widget guy here. Let's put two of them just for fun. All right, cool. Now it looks all official and shit. Drag an alarm here. So the alarms, actually, just to give you a heads up, I allow you to pick any actual alarm or any virtual outlet because I personally use virtual outlets to trigger something's wrong. So I'll often have a delay. So let's say, hey, my, whatchamacallit, my optical sensor is reading high, but I want it to read high for more than 5 minutes or something before it kind of tells me anything. So in this case, let's say my skimmer is full. So this will be my skimmer full alarm. That's a virtual outlet. And boom, it's off. And if I add another alarm, I don't actually have any on right now, but ATO empty, that's another one. So that's also off. So that's pretty cool. So notes, you can add notes here now too, which is pretty sweet. Let's undo that. Mouse over it, you get a little pencil. Yeah, cool. You can edit this. This is edit this, dude. Use basic markdown. Yay. Do some italics. Do a bullet list. Uno. Dos, no pun intended. Then you could do, is it number dot? Hello. Blah, 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 blah. Cool, now you have basic markdown. So that's pretty nice. You got to add little notes to yourself. Any other custom widgets? Dividers, notes, wet, dry? Nope. So that's all the custom widgets. So I added these because I've always needed them, or not always, but every once in a while they're useful, and that's cool. The other thing you'll notice is that there's a lock here. What the hell does that mean? So let's check it out. So let's go to the actual thing here. Debugger says this outlet is off. This is a complete trash virtual outlet. But we have a new feature here. It says protect on dashboard, which is enabled. That's where the lock comes from. By the way, you can have notes for these guys too. So you can kind of type notes here. Again, supports markdown. I think that's a horizontal rule, but 1, 2, let's save it. Boom. If you don't know the markdown syntax, you can look at this. Boom, it'll tell you some stuff. But anyways, protect on the dashboard. That'll give you the lock icon. So let's go back to the thing. What's that lock icon do? It says this is locked. So if I try to turn this on, I'll make this look better. But for now, it works and says, yo, this thing is trying to, turn on. Are you sure you want to let that happen? So on the mobile app, you'll notice there's a cover option, but on desktop there isn't. And I found myself accidentally, mousing onto stuff. So you can kind of protect these. So the lock will be unlocked until you refresh the page or you come back to the page. So let's hit refresh, goes quicker. So now it's locked in the on state. You want to go off? Cool. Yes. Let's tell it. Cool. Boom, 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 boom. And there you go. So that is most of the features of this thing that I've added, except for the last one. So we would navigate around a bunch. This is the new quick navigation feature. So you have a Command K. You have a little little search guy, so you could say, "Hey, what are the recent areas I've been to? You've been to the skimmer recently." Your mouse goes up and down. Cool, check it out. Boom. So you can also go to modules because any of the pages on here are also navigable. So we can go to our modules, but you can also search. So if I search for UV, here's my UV outlet. Boom, you can go to the UV, come back to the default dashboard, go there, cool. And then hit K, and there we are. So this is kind of a cool new feature I'm working on. It's almost done. It's not quite done, but it gives a quick way to get around the Apex, kind of like if you've ever used like any text editor or code IDE. Um, so it's almost ready. Couple more bugs to iron out, but that's that. I just wanted to show people what's been cooking. If you have any feature ideas, let me know. I will take feedback and get some beta testers at some point, but there's a couple bugs I want to iron out before I invite some people to chime in. All right, enjoy when it's live. Peace.